What am I going to talk about today? Paul, again reinforced the fact that we want some of the discussions to be around some good practical case studies. And I think what we have at Shell over the last several years is, it has been, as the title would indicate, quite, a journey toward what we call sustainable excellence in operations. So last thing I would say is just some of the other things that we've learned along the way. And one is a bit of a strengthening the link between performance improvement and leading KPIs. We've certainly learned some things about, what KPIs are the ones to focus on. Plus, we've learned some things around, if you're not careful, in some cases you might be chasing scores, right, that may not actually be having the most impact on performance, right? And so there's a bit of that we've learned. Establishing the right metrics to help sustain cost reductions. We've learned some things around that. I showed the unit operating cost, kind of the setback in 2009. Well, that setback was actually because we were doing the maintenance that we wanted to do. We had extended planned downtime, and we had more money spent on integrity. That should not actually be a bad thing from a metric perspective, right? But indeed it was, and we need to change that. The last is incorporating the feedback from the assets in the OE standard. And this is this tricky balance between, not wanting to be overly prescriptive, but yet wanting to be granular enough to where, guys in the field and operations managers can actually know what the hell we're talking about when we're talking about performing at minimum standard on, a maintenance process or on an inspection process or, on a performance management process. So it's a bit of a tricky balance. We'll always be adjusting it as we go forward, but I think you can understand the balance I'm talking about. The other is continuously enhancing the robustness of benchmarking. As you well know, in some cases around the world, if you just look at the ZIF portfolio, in some cases you have very robust benchmarks. In other cases, you don't at all. You need to work through joint venture accounting and all sorts of other things to try and establish your benchmarks. So we clearly are interested in getting more mature benchmarks. And, if whoever in the crowd, if you have the same idea in various places of the world, we'd be more than happy to join up and try to advance the robustness of some of those benchmarks, particularly I would say in Asia and in Africa right now. Those are areas where we lack good benchmarking data. And then the last thing is stimulate enhanced learning across asset and business sectors. We've been doing a fair amount of that, but now we have a fairly robust collection of assessment of various assets around the world relative to these standards. And so again, now you know where we're performing and where we're not performing. And to stimulate, what I would say, scratching the itch, okay, at various parts around the globe and stimulating some of that learning transfer across. So I think that's all I'll say. I'll park it here now. I know we probably have generated some interest in your own, in your minds. Happy to take questions. But also, if you see anybody with a Shell badge on, they've experienced this in the last several years, and I'm sure they've got some things to offer. Thank you.